she decides to go on the run. So she takes my son and she flees the state.
Welcome back to another episode of Daddy Issues. Our guest today is going to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his story.
So my name is Jennings, I was glad when you were open to doing this with me. I really appreciate it. I've had quite a saga here. Been dealing with this for the last probably four or 5 years or so. My son River is 6 now, and I have him full time. And he came to live with me in the spring of 2022, so 2.5 years ago. And I've been involved in litigation with his mom pretty much since he was about 8 months old or so. And we litigated in Idaho for a while, and then the case was moved to Arizona for a while. She relocated to Arizona. And in the summer of 2021, I was awarded custody of him in an Arizona court. And she decided to flee back to Idaho and claimed Idaho jurisdiction over the case. And the Idaho court took the case back.
Wow.
And so I lost custody after I had custody of him for 2 weeks or so. But law enforcement, when you get a custody order, they don't help you actually go get the child. So I got custody of him for like 2 weeks. I went to where I thought they were to try to locate him, and I wasn't able to find them. And then she filed for a UCC JEA hearing and got the case taken back to Idaho. And so, I lost custody again, and then I continued to litigate in Idaho.
Dude, first of all, what a nightmare. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you haven't even heard the half of it yet. This is like, that's just like the preamble.
Wow.
So then I continued to litigate in Idaho, for the next, whatever it was, 18 months. And then, and I was also visiting. So I'm a real estate agent in Seattle. That's like my day job. So anyway, so the whole time I'm doing this, I'm working. And then every month I'm going out to Idaho to visit my son for like a weekend. I got like 4 days a month, basically. So I would go out to Idaho to visit him, and they eventually, it took like over a year, but I eventually got overnight visits. And once I got overnight visits, I mean, she had denied 2 of my visits in Arizona when she was there. And that's actually why I was awarded custody of him at that point. So summer of 2021. The second visit that I was denied, the judge gave me emergency custody at that point. And then, that's when she ran back.
Because she wasn't following any of the rules?
Correct. She just wasn't showing up. I would email her to set up the visit. She would not respond to my email. I would book. So I live in Seattle, right? Like Washington. So like I would book airline tickets, hotel reservations, a rental car. So on 2 different occasions in Arizona, I flew from Seattle to Phoenix, and I would show up. We were supposed to do the exchanges at the one of these local libraries in Phoenix. I would show up at the location, and then she wouldn't show up at all, and she wouldn't respond to any of my correspondence or emails or anything. And then I would call the local jurisdiction, the local sheriff. They would come and meet me, and I would make a report of it. They can't do anything. They can't do anything.
Yep.
And then my attorney would file in Arizona for contempt of court. And the second visit, that's when I was awarded temporary custody. Then she ran back to Idaho, got the Idaho judge to take the case back over. That was that summer. Then I continued to litigate in Idaho. Then I was given overnight visits as of, I believe it was like October of 2021, like around that time frame.
Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp.com. If you're listening to these podcasts, then clearly you're going through, a hard time. And I used to think therapy was, kind of a joke. It wasn't really for me until I actually went. And, realize it's very beneficial. Even doing these podcasts, talking about our issues and, the things that men aren't really supposed to do, helps out tremendously. So go check out betterhelp.com. And if you use the code Daddy Issues Podcast, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy. So that's betterhelp.com/Daddy Issues Podcast.
And then, or no, yeah. It was like that fall. I exercised one of those overnight visits, which would have been like November of that same year. And, I think it was either like October, November. Anyway, and then I was given holidays as well. So I was given like Christmas that year. They're living in a very remote part of Idaho. It was eastern Idaho, the Teton Valley area. So I would travel. I would fly from Seattle. I would fly to that area. I would get a rental car. I would book a hotel. So each of these visits is costing me like over $2,000.
Yeah.
So I'm going out and I'm doing that. And then once I got overnights, she just began denying my visits again. So she denied 3 of my visits. It was one that fall. I was supposed to have my son for Christmas that year, which would have been like a week or something. Mind you, I rented a house where they were. I flew out for Christmas. I spent probably like $3,000 or easily. I flew out. I got a rental car. I rented a house, made all these arrangements, brought presents, was going to do Christmas with my son for the first time, mind you.
Yeah.
She didn't show up at all. And no correspondence whatsoever. Never showed up, nothing. I filed for contempt of court again. The judge, we got in front of the judge in the ensuing couple weeks. This is December of 2021. The judge basically told her, look, I'm going to give you one more chance. So we're going to do a visit in February. So February of 2022, we're going to do one more visit. And they, so it was on the schedule, it was all planned. I did the same thing. So I did the same thing. I make travel plans. I fly out there. I get a hotel, the whole 9 yards. I show up for the exchange. Now previously we had been doing our exchanges at a local park in this town. This exchange was going to happen at the sheriff's office because they wanted law enforcement to be close by because of all the antics that had gone on.
Yeah.
So I show up at this at the police station in this little town in rural Idaho. And I'm looking around and it's the time that I'm supposed to get him, which I think was 8 a.m. They're nowhere to be found. And so my attorney's okay, go do what you're supposed to do. And then, if she's not there, then let me know. So probably 15 minutes goes by, and I noticed that there's this weird guy in a pickup truck across the street from where I'm parked. So across the highway from this, sheriff's office place. And he's scoping me out and giving me weird looks. He comes over to my car, my rental car. He taps on the window. I open the door. I'm who are you? And he's oh, I know Sarah, that's my ex. That's my, my kid's mom. Your son is still sleeping, so he can't make it right now. And I was okay, I've heard enough. I've totally, I'd never seen this guy before. It's some random dude.
A random guy. Yeah.
And it's some random guy. I've never even seen him before. And I was okay, dude, you've said all you need to say. I'm so I call my attorney. I'm here's what's going on. My attorney's what? I go over and and this guy completely creeped me out. I mean, it's just this weirdo that I've never seen before. So I go over and I'm being my ears perk up. I'm just this is super strange and weird. I take a picture of his license plate with my iPhone. He grabs my iPhone out of my hand, literally physically grabs it.
Wow.
Which technically I think is probably assault.
It is assault, yeah.
Yeah. So then it gets better. We get in this verbal altercation. We both go into the sheriff's office, and the lady, the receptionist there, this is some rural, small town. So the lady there is like, oh, I have to get a deputy. So we're both sitting in the lobby of this like sheriff's office place yelling at each other. He won't give me my phone back, which that's all I really wanted to do was to get my phone back. So the deputy comes out there. I get my phone back and they ID him. They ID me and they send us on our way. And then we got a hearing very quickly after that because of my attorney. Mind you, I have spent this entire process from tip to tail is like over 250 grand. If you want to just add all the attorney's fees, the visitation, the private investigators, the travel, the like all this like a court costs, file, whatever. There's so much crap. Anyway, so anyway, we get in front of the judge like a week later, or it was very shortly thereafter. It's a Zoom hearing. I'm back in Seattle. The judge goes to my kid's mom. He's like, okay, I have a question for you. I want to know, where is the child right now? And she was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I want to know physically, where is the child now? Like, we're doing the Zoom hearing right now. Like, this is in real time. Where is the child right now? I want to know a physical location where the child is. And she was like, oh, I can't share that with you. So the judge says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and issue what's called an order to appear. You're going to bring the child to the courthouse 1 week from today at so-and-so time. If you do not do that, we're going to go ahead and talk about custody again. So a week from then, like, there's this hearing. I am in Seattle now. My attorney's local. She's in Idaho. She and my private investigator, who have been working on this case, show up at the courthouse. She does it again. She doesn't show up with the child.
And what's crazy is the judge gave her one more chance for the visitation, which she blew. Then he gave her another chance to show up.
Right. So he gives her another chance. She doesn't show up. Now, to his credit, he issued an emergency temporary custody order on the spot. He was like, the game is over. We're done. So I got custody that day. That was February 23rd of 2022. Okay. Now, then it gets better. She decides to go on the run. So she takes my son and she flees the state. Okay. She's missing for, I believe it was 67 days. She disappeared February 23rd, or was considered a missing person. They issued a warrant for felony custodial interference. And she just like leaves Idaho and nobody knows where she is. And my son is considered a missing person.
So now she has a felony.
Oh yeah. So she has a felony. She has a felony warrant, and those kind of cases, it's a felony warrant in all 50 states.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, this is like it. Like then everything got raised. So it goes from being a civil matter over to being a criminal matter. So she's literally a fugitive of justice at this point.
Wow.
So she disappears. So that was February of 2022. This goes on for 67 days. The leading the investigation is the local jurisdiction, which is the Teton County Sheriff's Department. That's where the detective was who was in charge of it. But it kind of grew to the point where I was talking to the FBI. I was talking to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There were various law enforcement agencies in other states that were involved because there was evidence that she had gone to particular places, but nobody really knew. Somebody and mind you, this guy who had shown up at my exchange was some like super whacked out, crazy, like sovereign citizen, like anti-government guy who she got involved with. She was involved with a bunch of these people like that. And they are posting online threats now against the sheriff who is on the case, the judge, my private investigator, me, my attorney, and several other people. So they're posting threats online. I got interviewed by the Southern Poverty Law Center at that point. because of having experience with quote unquote hate groups, because that's what these people are considered as a hate group.
Yeah.
So anyway, so she's like fleeing the state, and then this goes on for like 2 months or so. It gets to be the end of April. I'm like, not in a great mental state, as I'm sure you can imagine. And somebody gave some sort of anonymous tip. I don't really know the nature of it. I never found out the mechanics of how they were found, but they were found, and she was apprehended in Alabama. So like someplace outside of Huntsville, Alabama. She and my son were found. He was okay. She was sent to jail. She was incarcerated in Alabama for like 3 months. Then Idaho had her extradited from Alabama back to Idaho. She was in jail in Idaho for a while. All told, she was in jail for 5.5 months. Then she was released pending sentencing. I got my son April 30th of 2022, and I've had him ever since. The judge the judge issued a no contact order, so she's not allowed to contact me for 3 years.
Yeah.
She also she took a plea deal, so she's on 3 years of felony probation. She's already violated her probation during that period. And
oh my God.
Now fast forward to today, she is now trying to litigate in Washington State, where I live now and where my son lives, to try to get my son back, which is like so ridiculous because I mean,
yeah,
she literally is a felon. Like she's
right. It's going to be much harder now.
Like part of her plea agreement was admitting guilt. That was part of the plea deal. So like she is a felon for kidnapping. They call it custodial interference, like in other states or whatever. So anyway, that's where we are now, and I am having to now go through litigation yet again because she's filed in Washington to try to get custody or visitation or whatever it is. Trying to and so our existing order is an Idaho order. And we're now fighting over whether or not they're going to adopt that order in Washington or what some other new, or she wants to, of course, change it because it's very deferential to me at this point. Fast forward to today, my son is now 6. So when he was missing, he was 4. Now he is 6. He's in first grade here locally. He's thriving. He's doing amazing. He doesn't really remember. I mean, he remembers some of it, but it's obviously not at the forefront of his mind now.
Yeah.
And we survived, like we were okay. But this saga, it was more than anything anybody should ever have to go through. I was asked to write a victim impact statement for the criminal judge, the criminal case. I was not a party in the criminal case. It's the state of Idaho versus her. But I went to all the hearings because I wanted to know what happened.
Of course. Yeah.
She was ordered to pay restitution. She's on probation, so she has a probation officer. She has to report to them. If she violates her probation, they'll throw her back in. There's all these requirements that she has to follow. I think they might be forcing her to get mental evaluations. I'm not sure about that part of it. But occasionally I get correspondence from this criminal victims advocate person from Idaho, the Idaho, penal system, basically, who's telling me what's going on, with the case. She appealed her conviction or some part of her conviction, and that was dismissed and put down. So yeah, I mean that's my
this
saga.
Is a movie.
It is.
This is unbelievable.
Fully. And I mean, it's funny because I fought harder than, I don't think she ever thought that I would do as much as I did with this,
Right.
I fought as hard as you can fight. And, that's the other thing is when this thing all happened, February of 2022, I was awarded, she's been ordered to pay all of my attorney's fees for the whole action. So $44,000 just for the Idaho portion itself, which I'm never going to see any of that money. She has no money.
Right.
But I have a judgment against her for that amount. But that doesn't even scratch the surface of what I spent in the process of doing all this. And the funny thing is I would do it all again. I would do it again. It was
Yep.
worth it. I have my son now. He's doing amazing. He's like thriving. He's in first grade now. He's like a ripping skier. He like he has all these friends. He's like involved in the community. He like, has like, he's thrived here. He's done incredible.
Yeah, I can't see them taking him out of that situation again to give her custody. That just wouldn't make any sense. I mean, I have a million questions.
She doesn't even live here, dude. She lives in Teton County, Idaho. That's another condition of her probation. She's not allowed to leave the Idaho. Like it's a condition of her if you're on felony probation, it's a whole different story. So
it's just unbelievable. And what was the reason you guys split in the first place? Because you said your son was only a couple months old.
I mean, yeah. So like he was born in April of 2018. By like that Thanksgiving, we were split. I tried really hard to make a go of it with her. We like went to counseling and all this stuff. And I mean, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't really know. I mean, there were like financial issues, there were interpersonal issues, like there were issues between us, like as a couple at the time. There was all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
She eventually alleged domestic violence. That's been her contention all along, is that I abused her. And I've become quite a student of, domestic violence allegations are weaponized just left and right.
Yeah.
So the judge in the very first proceeding we did, January of 2019, so the very first hearing we had, the judge said that there's no evidence of domestic violence by either party. That's in the ruling. However, she continues to parrot that. We're going on, 4 or 5 years now, and she's still alleging that I abused her in some way. Nobody, like the judge, nobody involved in it, believes her at all.
Right.
And there's no merit to it at all. There's no photos, there's no medical records, there's no evidence of any kind. And I have said repeatedly, I'm like, if you can share something that will show that this actually occurred, do it. And better yet, put it on social media so we can all see it. And she has not been able to do that. She joined this thing called the Idaho Address Confidentiality Program, which is for victims of domestic violence.
Oh,
God. We eventually were able to subpoena the application to join that program. We were ostensibly supposed to tell about how you were abused. We got the application, and there was nothing in it. You don't even have to prove or show that anything like that happened to you.
Hey guys, real quick, if you can jump over to patreon.com/daddyissuesthetruth, help support what we're doing, help support the channel, just so we can get as many dads as we can on the podcast and share their stories, and hopefully it's helping you guys out. That would be huge, man, and I definitely need your support, could use your support, and I hope that what we're doing is helpful to you. So if you guys could help out, patreon.com/daddyissuesthetruth, and greatly appreciated, man. Thank you guys. All right, back to the episode.
So she just got to be a part of it because they'll just let anybody in, I guess.
Yeah, she's living her lie.
Completely. She's married to it, dude. She has to, toe the line.
This is unbelievable. You might win the wildest story on here that I've heard. This is unbelievable.
That's why I wanted to come on. I appreciate what you're doing, because I think oftentimes in these things, I think sometimes men's voices are not heard maybe as much. It's definitely
you get the same type of thing. Like you get the physical abuse and all of that allegations against you as a man. I hear that more often than not, but then there's no repercussion for the woman. And for her to have so many chances by the judge, still gave her another chance after he said this is your last chance, still gave her another one, she blew it. I mean, what does she expect? And the hard part is, it's like, if you guys have just gotten along in the beginning and didn't have to go down that road, she wouldn't have a felony. You guys would be sharing your child. Like everything would be good. It's crazy how far she would go.
This could have every bit of this could have been avoided. Every
Right.
bit.
Yeah.
And no, she chose to like go this direction, and now, frankly, they're gonna punish her for it. And it's not me; it's the state of Idaho.
Right. She
They're
pushed it so
like,
far. Now it's the state. Yeah.
oh yeah, they and
Yep.
I mean, oh, that's the other thing that I forgot to mention. During the course of this all happening, like the litigation in Idaho, she got so upset and like she's the victim and whatever. She sued in federal court like 16 different people that were involved with the case. Me, my attorney, our judge, other judges,
God.
other legal staff at the law firm, her own, like she sued her own attorney, my attorney, our judge, other people involved, like staff, like all these people, and it all got dismissed. But she just pissed people off because these people
Right.
all had to retain counsel to deal with it or file things, or just, it was like a huge time suck.
Now, is she pro se or does she have an attorney?
Oh, she has been it's been off and on, but
Yeah.
she's had probably 7 or 8 different attorneys, and what happens is she'll pick one up for like 6 months or 3 months, and then that attorney figures out what's going on, and they'll quit. So they just quit over and over again. She'll like, I think she probably crowdsources like a retainer, call it $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever, and then that'll get exhausted, and then they'll just fire her. And that's just, I mean, it's just been like, it's been like a revolving door.
Are you ever like worried that, I mean, she already is willing to go as far as it is, but like, are you ever worried like one day she might come to the school, grab your son, and just take off?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I am super concerned about all that kind of stuff. We have a no contact order right now, but I mean, yeah, I'm super concerned for his safety, our safety. I mean, all the history of the case. Like, I'm super concerned about it.
Yeah. How's your bond with him? Because like during all the court things, contempt and all of that, you had to wait a couple months to then be able to see him again.
Well,
and now you have him for 2 years. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. When I got him, so April 30th of 2022, I had not physically seen him since October 31 of 2021 because of all the missed visits. So that's like 6 months.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of time for a kid that age. And I mean, we are like super bonded now. I mean, because we've had all this time. I mean, I've had him for 2.5 years every day, like, school and activities and sports, and my friends know him, and all these things. So I mean, we're like super bonded now, and I was worried when I first got him back, like, oh my gosh, is he gonna remember me, whatever.
Yeah.
Because I had to like my attorney texted me. I was like at a business meeting downtown Seattle. My attorney texted me, all caps, "We have River," and I just didn't know what to think, and I called her, and she was like, "Call the sheriff right now." I called the sheriff, and the sheriff's like, "Call Alabama, Child Services or whatever."
Yeah.
I call this lady in Alabama, like some phone number, and she picks up the phone, and I can hear my son in the background. And
that is so crazy.
She's like, "We have River here. When are you going to come get him?" And I was like, I'm booking the next flight. So I literally I had to book a flight. I flew out there like in a moment's notice to go get him.
Wow.
Just that one trip alone cost me over $3,000, which she was ordered to pay because she fled.
Right.
So as part of her criminal conviction and her restitution, she has to pay for my trip to go fetch him in this place that I've literally never even been in my life. Like, I've never even been. I mean, I've been to Alabama like once in my life, and I was like 8 years old or something. It was ridiculous. What
are you doing for work like during this whole time? Like, are they allowing you to?
So like
Or you do real estate, right?
Yeah, I'm a real estate agent full time. I mean, 2019 was a really hard year for me because I was like transitioning to living here, and like I was a new agent here, and I didn't have any money, blah blah blah. So I mean, it's been really challenging. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like it's been tough because I'm self-employed.
Yeah.
And I was using a huge amount of my income to do this. And to be blunt, most people on this planet could not have done what I did. If you're like some guy that makes like $42,000 a year that has like an average income, you're not, like, you would have gotten vaporized by the system, by this system. There's no way that you could have kept up with what I did. like with
Yeah.
the visits and the court and the hearings and the attorneys and the, all this crap.
And what sucks is you played by the rules, you followed the rules the whole way through, and it took years. Like, granted, at the end,
Yes.
it panned out, but it took years and hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's what
Yes.
it's irritating and frustrating, but that's yeah.
Oh, completely, completely. It's insane. It's totally insane. And I think about my heart goes out to other guys who are in my situation for whatever reason who don't have the ability to do what I did.
Yeah.
Because not everybody does. And like even it was like so. I mean, there's still things I owe to people for that whole period because I just like frankly it was insane. I mean, it's amazing that I was able to do it just to get it done. It's like the
Yeah.
hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, in so many. I mean, it's like I'm a triathlete. Like I do Ironmans and stuff, and I'm like a big athlete, and I like do hard things. Like I'm all about doing the hard thing.
Yeah.
This was like so much harder than anything I've ever done on so many levels.
Yeah. I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
My
So
God.
anyway.
Yeah. Well, dude, thank you so much for sharing your story. Do you have any advice for any dads who could be going through something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in all these Facebook pages and I read about what other people are going through, and I've even had 3 or 4 other dads reach out to me over the last couple of years who are going through very high conflict cases similar to what I'm going through. One guy I talked to quite a bit. He's dealing with a child custody case it's in California and New Zealand of all places. They live in both places, and he's dealing with some similar issues to what I dealt with. And my advice is just keep going. Like, don't quit. Just keep going. Don't like. It's going to get really hard, and if you're involved in a case like mine where it's really high conflict, like you're gonna want to quit. My own parents, his grandparents, told me to give up. Like
Wow.
they came to me and they were like, "Dude, you've tried hard enough. You spent all your money.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you just give up? Because like you're obviously not getting anywhere. You've really tried hard. We're worried about you. We're worried about your financial security over the long term. Blah blah blah.
Dude,
Why don't you just
and
walk
your
away?"
mental state. It's
Yeah,
like you
all
going
of
through
it.
that. Holy shit.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, all this crap, and I
Wow.
just wasn't willing to quit, and that's the advice I give people, and it's hard advice to give because I see what kind of pain some of the people are going through, that are out there in the world because the system is so broken, and that's a really hard thing to say to somebody. But I mean, I can't really say anything different because that's what worked for me. I just kept going,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of times I really, it was really hard to not quit. Whether it be financially, mentally, whatever it was. I mean, there was a lot of adversity, but you just have to keep going. And whether you have an attorney or you're representing yourself or whatever you're doing, like you just have, it's like, it's a very long game and you just have to keep playing the game. And like a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, you may get your son back, but it's probably going to be many, many years from now." Because I have friends who have been in this similar situation, maybe not, as dramatic as mine, but
Right.
they got their kids way later because they had to just endure the process of going, through all that. And this for me ended quicker than I thought it was, and it was just because of the terrible decisions that his mom was making.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you just have to you got to stick with it, and it's like no matter how many times you fail, you have to keep getting up and like just keep going, and it's really really hard to do. I mean, I mean, especially like when they were missing. I mean, that was mentally the hardest thing that I've ever been through was like that
Yeah.
period because I didn't know if he was going to be okay. I didn't know if I would ever see them again.
Right.
I mean, and I even had people come to me and be like, "Dude, you better prepare yourself mentally for like the fact that you're not going to see them," because even the sheriff was like, "Look, oftentimes when things get to this level, we don't have anything to go on, and frankly, it can take years for anything, to be resolved if it ever does get
Right.
resolved." So
That's so crazy. Yeah. Oh my
yeah,
God. Wow. You definitely have the story of the year. It's unbelievable what you went through. But I thank you so much for sharing your story and being so open. So
thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I only want to do this more. I want to do it more just so other people can just hear the story, because I know that there's people out there that are going through really hard stuff, and they maybe could benefit by hearing my story. I mean, I went through it. I don't really necessarily want to experience it again, but there are people out there who I know who are going through hard things, and I've also said, I mean, if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to share my experience and just give them ideas as far as how to approach it, because I know how hard it is.
Yeah, and I mean, even hearing your story and me going through mine, like I think I went through a bad time. I'm listening to this and I'm like, thank God I didn't have to go through. You know what I mean? So I think some people would take away like, damn, I really don't have it that bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, thank you so much.
You can hold me down. You can hold me down.